Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories. My name is Matt. On YouTube, we post just one new story each week, but on our podcast, you'll find several fresh episodes released throughout the week. You can listen to us on all major platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, Pandora, and more, all completely ad-free. Just look us up under the same name, Deep Sleep Stories, and enjoy. Now, take a deep breath, and let's begin tonight's story.
Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories, a soothing haven where you can gently set aside the worries of the day and drift into restful slumber. Take a moment to notice the softness of your breath, the gentle rise and fall of your chest, and the comforting sense that you've chosen this time for yourself. In a little while, you'll venture into a story of a quiet Scottish castle set upon rugged moors, where wind and rain dance across ancient stone walls, and distant candles flicker in cozy corners. But for now, let this moment be a soft cushion for your tired mind. Feel your jaw loosen, your shoulders drop, and your limbs grow pleasantly heavy. Inhale deeply, and as you exhale, allow the day's tensions to slip away like a passing thought. With each breath, imagine the outside world gently dimming, while an inner calm grows warmer and brighter. Let that warmth fill your chest and settle in your heart. A friendly glow that reminds you there is nowhere else to be except right here, embracing the slow lull of a peaceful night. Breathe in once again, more softly this time, and hear the faint echo of distant rain. Perhaps it's only in your imagination for now, but soon enough we'll tread across moss-laden stones and towering castle halls. The story will unfold as a comforting guide, meandering through ancient corridors and listening to the hush of the wind through tall windows. Tonight is meant for drifting and letting each breath find a gentler rhythm than the last. Let this intention ground you in tranquility. There is no hurry in your heartbeat. There is no rush in your thoughts. You can simply melt into this moment, resting easily in the knowledge that a cozy story awaits. A story that promises low whispers of the wind, the patter of gentle rain, and the soft flicker of candlelight in a timeless Scottish keep. Settle your mind now and let us begin. Far away in the northern reaches of the Scottish countryside, a centuries-old castle sat perched on a rugged rise of land. It stood like a silent witness to passing storms and bright, fleeting days of sunshine. Sheltered by ancient, knotted trees along one edge and open moorland on the other, it was a realm of shifting skies and swirling winds. Night after night, the wind brushed against tall, leaded windows, and the rain pattered upon sloping roofs of dark slate, weaving lullabies through the thick stone walls. On this particular evening, the wind carried a gentle melody across the heather and through narrow passageways, filling even the dim corners of the castle with a soft, resonant hum. Within those walls lived a visitor named Ewan, a traveler who had come seeking quiet and the profound stillness that often accompanies remote places. He'd arrived earlier that day, his boots damp from a lingering mist on the moors. The caretaker, an older gentleman named Graham, had greeted him with warmth and a nod, showing him toward a spacious chamber prepared for his stay. From a tall, narrow window in that chamber, Ewan caught sight of the encroaching twilight. The sky, painted in muted purples and grays, promised a night of gentle, rumbling storms. As the shadows lengthened, Ewan ventured out of his room, winding through corridor after corridor in search of a warm place to rest before bed. The walls were lined with tapestries faded by time, their threads telling tales of noble hunts and ancient battles long past. The flicker of a lantern guided his steps as he moved along the stone floor. His footsteps landed softly, the echoes muted by the thickness of centuries-old masonry. Each breath he took felt layered with the scent of old parchment, beeswax, and the faint trace of peat smoke that had once fueled a blazing hearth. He made his way to a small sitting room at the far end of the corridor. Within, a single oil lamp glowed upon a table near the fireplace, which crackled quietly, casting dancing shadows across the arched ceiling. Graham had lit the fire only moments before. A plush armchair draped with a deep green throw beckoned Ewan closer, and he eased into the seat, letting his weary body relax. The glow of the hearth seemed to reach into the corners of the room, illuminating ancient portraits of people who had once called this place home. Their eyes seemed both curious and kind, as if gently welcoming another traveler into their quiet domain. Outside, the wind began to nudge the clouds closer together, a silent arrangement that would soon yield rain. Ewan lifted his gaze toward the tall, narrow window, catching sight of the first droplets sliding down the glass. The patter became a gentle chorus, tapping softly at the panes. Over the mantel, a portrait of a lady in a russet gown stared out into the room. Her posture was poised, her eyes steady, as though she too listened for the shifting rhythms of the elements beyond the castle walls. The small chamber's warmth was comforting, and Ewan found his eyelids growing heavy. Yet curiosity kindled within him, urging him to explore a bit more before succumbing to sleep. Rising from the chair, he wandered down another corridor, one that gently sloped downward to the lower levels of the castle. With each step, the lantern's glow stretched across ancient stone, revealing worn steps leading to a circular tower room. A wooden door at the base stood slightly ajar, inviting him to see what lay beyond. A rich, earthy odor filled the stairwell, reminiscent of damp wool and the faint tang of old wood soaked in years of drifting rain. In the tower room, the wind found a gap in the narrow arrow-slit windows, creating a low, hollow whistle. This small chamber had been transformed into a modest library. Books lined the walls, interspersed with scrolls tied by faded ribbons. An old globe in the corner depicted the world as it was imagined centuries earlier, its continents shaped somewhat differently than modern maps. Ewan traced a hand along the spines of the leather-bound volumes, wondering at the stories contained within. Some titles bore Gaelic script, that was difficult to read. Others were in Latin, their pages marked by centuries of use. He settled on a small stool, gingerly pulling a volume off the shelf. Its cover was cracked, the title worn. As he opened it, the quiet hush of turning pages mingled with the wind's distant sigh. The text spoke of local legends, drifting spirits on the moors, heartfelt tales of lost travelers who found solace in the castle's hearthlight, and vivid depictions of storms that raged across this northern land. He smiled, for there was something deeply comforting in these old stories, even if they told of unrest or momentary fear. It felt as though the castle itself was a kind-hearted guardian, watching over all who wandered within its boundaries and offering them refuge from the changing skies outside. After a time, Ewan rose, closing the book and placing it carefully back in its rightful spot. A drowsy calm had crept into his limbs, yet he wished to see more before returning to his chamber. Exiting the small library, he ventured to a corridor that led toward the great hall. Along the way, a narrow window revealed a glimpse of the moors through the gloom of night, where the rain now fell more steadily. Moonlight was nearly absent, hidden behind clouds, but Ewan could just make out the rolling shape of the land, a wide, open expanse that beckoned explorers by day, but cradled them in darkness by night. When he reached the great hall, it was surprisingly peaceful. The large hearth had been banked, its embers glowing with a sleepy light. Chairs upholstered in worn velvets faced the fire, arranged in a circle for conversation. Tonight, however, no voices filled the space, only the soft hush of the wind outside and the drip of rain into the courtyard well could be heard. A single brass chandelier, lowered from the high ceiling, carried only a few flickering candles, their flames casting a gentle glow across walls adorned with antique shields and spears. It was a setting from another time, preserved in quiet dignity. Ewan approached the hearth and stood for a moment, feeling the final pulses of warmth on his palms. Shadows danced against his face, painting fleeting images of old battles across the polished stone. He closed his eyes and listened intently. The wind had a way of wandering through the high towers and corridors, as if searching for those who might be awake. It felt like an old friend passing by, checking in on the small life below. Now and again, a gust would push the rain against the windows, and the soft patter became a gentle tap, a lullaby that lulled the castle deeper into hush. A door near the side of the hall led out to a covered walkway. Despite the chill in the air, Ewan followed the archway, intrigued by the rhythmic sound of rain hitting the courtyard stones. The walkway was protected by a thick roof of timber, allowing him to peer into the open courtyard without getting soaked. Water collected in small puddles, reflecting the glow from a single torch that sputtered valiantly against the drizzling sky. In that reflection, Ewan saw the faint shape of the castle's tower stretching upward like a protective guardian. Every so often, a whisper of wind found its way in, tugging lightly at his jacket and reminding him that night was calling him toward rest. Slowly, he returned indoors, traversing the winding corridors back to his assigned chamber. A soft candle had been left burning on the bedside table, illuminating a tall canopy bed dressed with thick curtains in a shade of deep burgundy. The bed covers were layered, a linen sheet, a wool blanket, and a down-filled quilt that promised warmth and comfort. On a small table by the bed stood a teapot and a single cup, steam still rising from the freshly brewed chamomile blend that Graham had thoughtfully provided. Taking a seat on the edge of the bed, Ewan sipped the tea, letting its gentle floral essence soothe his throat and ease his mind. He looked around the room with a fondness that often arises when one feels cared for in a new place. A tapestry depicting rolling moorland hung on one wall, intricately woven with greens, purples, and browns, capturing a day-lit scene of distant hills. Though the chamber itself was quiet, the wind and rain persisted outside, weaving a tapestry of their own against the stone. At times, a gust of wind would cause a momentary hush, as if the castle listened closely to the swirl of nature's nighttime conversation. Ewan placed the teacup down, slid under the covers, and let his head rest against a pile of plush pillows. A gentle drowsiness fell over him. He listened to the droplets dancing on the sill, the wind making its rounds. From the corner of his eye, the candlelight flickered, casting graceful shadows on the ceiling. His mind wandered through pleasant visions of the library's dusty shelves, the great hall's echoing emptiness, and the courtyard's still reflection, each memory rolling into the next like waves lapping upon a quiet shore. Moments from the day's travels blended into the present comfort, weaving a soft blanket of recollection that beckoned him closer to sleep. But Ewan's story extended beyond that single moment. As nights passed, he grew more acquainted with the castle and its rhythms, the way each corridor seemed to hum with the wind, the way the moor outside called with its wide open invitation. During the daytime, he strolled among the heather and the low brush, the distant call of a curlew echoing under ever-shifting skies. He would feel the moisture from the damp earth seeping into his sturdy boots, and return in the evenings to warm himself by the hearth. The caretaker always had a small meal prepared, simple yet hearty. Soups made from root vegetables, fresh bread, and a thick pat of butter that tasted faintly of sweet grass. Each evening the wind returned, as though announcing the approach of a gentle rainfall. Curtains swayed, doors softly rattled in their frames, and the castle's ancient bones seemed to sigh in unison. By candlelight, Ewan read old journals, found in a trunk near his bed, notes from travelers who had lodged there over the course of decades. They wrote of the castle's comforting hush, of nights spent listening to the rain, finding solace in the timelessness of its stone halls. Some recounted dreams full of rolling moors and quiet storms, while others wrote philosophical musings on the nature of solitude. In every page, Ewan found a mirrored experience, that sense of being cradled by the land's wild spirit, lulled to rest by winds that whispered lullabies in the dark. Occasionally, he felt compelled to wander out into the courtyard during the rainy nights. Shielding himself with a heavy cloak, he would walk slowly along the covered walkway and pause at a wooden bench near the edge. From there, he watched the raindrops gather in intricate patterns on the flagstones, forming small pools that reflected a shimmering version of the world above. On one such evening, the sound of raindrops grew as gentle as a whisper, each drop a tiny messenger from the cloud-heavy sky. The hush was so profound, he felt as if he stood suspended in time, heartbeats slowing to match the quiet pulse of the night. Back inside, the gentle crackle of fires greeted him, welcoming his return. In the great hall, the caretaker sometimes whittled by the light of the coals, carving small figures that resembled the animals of the moors, a fox, a hare, an eagle. He would offer Ewan a seat and a mug of warm cider, but there was never any pressure to converse. Simple presence, the acceptance of quiet company, was enough. Now and then, a low rumble of thunder rolled across the horizon, far enough away to be heard only as a distant memory of storms yet to come. In those moments, the castle felt profoundly safe, as though it too had weathered centuries of life and was content to stand firm, offering a sheltering embrace to those within its walls. Night after night, Ewan retreated to his cozy chamber. He would light a small candle by the window, watching it glow against the darkness outside. Sometimes the wind sent a swirl of rain that blurred his view, but if the skies briefly cleared, he saw the moors glisten under pale starlight. In these peaceful hours, he found an almost mystical sense of belonging, as though the land and the castle had accepted him for who he was, quietly weaving him into their ancient tapestry of stories and travelers, storms and stillness. During one especially windy evening, the sound of the gusts made the rafters creak. From the warmth of his bed, Ewan observed the flickering shadows that stretched across the ceiling. It seemed as though the castle itself was a living entity, breathing in tune with the wind. Each exhale from the moors rattled the window panes slightly, and in return, the castle's old timbers released subtle moans. Rather than unsettling, this duet reminded him that all things have a voice if we listen carefully. The thick stones had endured many lifetimes, and this was simply another night in its grand chronicle. The next morning, a calm followed the storm. The rain-soaked moors glimmered in early light, and the castle's courtyard was refreshed, its puddles shining like small mirrors. Ewan woke to the sound of a gentle breeze drifting through the corridor. After a simple breakfast of oats and cream, he ventured beyond the gates for a long walk. He traversed narrow footpaths, crossing tiny streams filled by the night's downpour. The land smelled of wet earth and morning dew, with a richness that spoke of renewal. Although this was the same moor he had gazed upon from his window, it felt newly minted after the storm, a softer place where quiet stillness prevailed. He admired the thick velvet of moss covering stone walls and the small purple blossoms of heather that painted the hillsides. Throughout these days, the castle watched over him, a silent companion to his explorations. Whether the skies were filled with clouds or shining bright with scattered sunlight, Ewan returned each evening to the quiet hallways and the promise of restful sleep. The caretaker's gentle presence never intruded, yet always provided comfort, and the old walls seemed to hum with well-worn lullabies. Time here took on a different quality, as though every moment stretched out, inviting deeper observation and calmer reflection. On one particularly serene afternoon, Ewan found a hidden courtyard behind a tall hedge. A small oak tree stood in the center, its branches thick with leaves that rustled gently. Beneath it was a wooden bench worn smooth by countless visitors. He sat for a while, letting the subtle hush of the leaves guide his thoughts toward stillness. Above him, the castle towers rose against a sky that threatened another drizzle, but for the moment the air was clear. A few swallows circled overhead, their calls echoing softly between the stone walls. It was a moment of simple wonder, one that framed the castle not as a fortress, but as a sanctuary, a living place that held a peaceful corner for every quiet soul who passed through. As dusk fell again, a fine mist settled over the moors, softening the horizon until it disappeared into a wash of gray. The caretaker's lamp appeared at the end of the corridor, beckoning Ewan to supper. The flickering light made shapes dance along the arched ceiling, playful silhouettes that led him toward a humble dining nook. Near the kitchen, there a simple stew bubbled in a cast iron pot, and bread fresh from the oven filled the air with a warm, comforting aroma. They dined by candlelight, speaking only a little, but the atmosphere was filled with understanding. Outside, the wind picked up, and the hush of rain returned, tapping at the narrow windows with a quiet sense of inevitability. Later, Ewan walked once more past the great hall where the embers of a final fire glowed. A softly swirling draft carried the scent of damp stones and the faint perfume of spent candle wax. He paused to admire the tapestries that he had only glanced at before, noticing hidden details in the fading threads. One depicted a knight in shining armor returning from a quest, welcomed by a figure in the archway of this very castle. Another showed a tranquil scene of peasants gathering wheat under a wide summer sky. All around him, centuries of stories lay woven into the walls, echoing, but never intruding upon the quiet of the present moment. When he reached his chamber, the caretaker had left a single candle lit upon the mantel. Rain was falling steadily now, the wind swirling in gentle eddies that curled around the tower. The stone walls seemed to cradle the hush, ensuring that the gale outside became nothing more than a lullaby. Ewan changed into his night clothes, savoring the softness of linen against his skin. The air felt comfortably cool, but the bed offered layers of warmth. Sliding beneath the covers, he closed his eyes and allowed the gentle glow of candlelight to dance behind his eyelids. He took one final look at the window, where droplets traced shimmering paths against the dark glass. So the evening settled into a quiet ritual. The wind in the corridors, the patter of raindrops, the soft glow of one last candle, and the heavy warmth of ancient stone keeping him safe. Within these rhythms, Ewan discovered a calm that felt akin to drifting on a gentle tide, where each breath carried him closer to a place of deep rest. The moors had their storms, but the castle held its peace, and together they formed a lullaby of nature and shelter. In the days that followed, this pattern continued. Daylight walks across sodden ground, warm meals by the hearth, hushed reading in the library, and nights filled with the music of wind and rain. As he wandered the corridors, Ewan felt a growing kinship with the castle, as though his footsteps had joined the chorus of travelers who had passed through. Each swirl of wind in the tower, each flicker of a lamp in the hall, was a quiet greeting that reminded him he was not alone in the silence. The castle, timeless and steadfast, welcomed him with gentle acceptance, embodying the spirit of deep peace. When finally it came time for Ewan to take his leave, he found himself reluctant to depart. Yet he took comfort in the knowledge that the castle would remain, waiting with its thick walls and long winding corridors for whoever might seek its refuge next. As he stepped outside on that last morning, the rain had paused, leaving the moors glistening under soft sunlight. The wind, still humming faintly through the tower, seemed to whisper a friendly farewell. He gathered his things, thanked the caretaker, and walked away from the castle's gate, the sound of gravel underfoot muffled by the lingering dampness. He carried with him a memory of nights soothed by wind and rain, of a castle that never slept, but merely watched over its slumbering guests with unwavering gentleness. Now, dear one, let your own mind settle into that same gentle hush. Feel the softness of the pillow beneath your cheek, the weight of the blankets cocooning you. Imagine the castle walls rising around you, thick with centuries of quiet. Hear the wind in your thoughts as it weaves through hallways, gently guiding you toward deeper rest. Notice how your breathing slows, each inhale a soft invitation to peace, each exhale a release of lingering tension. The night enfolds you like a protective cloak, much as those ancient stones once cradled their visitors against the storm. Allow yourself to slip further into this tender darkness, where the only sounds are the whispers of your breath and the distant patter of a gentle rain. Let your muscles relax one by one until your arms and legs grow light as though floating on a calm sea. Sense the edges of consciousness beginning to blur, like a mist rolling across the moors. There is nothing to worry about now, nothing to solve or plan. All that remains is the calm presence of this moment, soothing as a lullaby, echoing through timeless corridors. Let each heartbeat resonate with the peaceful hush that emanates from within. If a thought arises, acknowledge it gently, then watch it dissolve like a small ripple fading in a quiet pond. The hush returns and you drift deeper into stillness. Picture the last flicker of candlelight guiding you down a plush corridor to a wooden door. Open that door in your mind and discover the most comforting bedroom imaginable. The bed is warm, the sheets are soft, and a single lantern glows dimly. Here, within this sanctuary of rest, you can surrender to the night's embrace. Feel your eyes growing heavier, eyelids tenderly closing. Release the day's concerns, allowing the hush of evening to lull you. The castle of your imagination stands guard outside, its tall walls offering a serene boundary between you and the world. The wind gently makes its rounds, rustling through the moors, carrying with it the hush that soothes and lulls. All is well, and all is at peace. Breathe in that serenity. Breathe out into a deeper calm. Let yourself sink into the gentle arms of slumber. You have nothing more to do here but rest, safe in the knowledge that you are protected by time and stone and the tender lull of a gentle night. Let sleep come softly and surely, like a quiet wave washing over the shore. Dreams, if they find you, will be kind and comforting, carried by the melody of raindrops against the sill. And when morning dawns, you will rise renewed with the memory of a castle's hush woven into your soul. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.